The second part of 9-4 is simplifying rational expressions. So we're going to use some sneaky squares to do that. In this problem right here, we have x squared plus 2x minus 24 over x squared plus 7x plus 6. And we're going to use sneaky squares to figure that out. So up here I have x squared, and then I have negative 24. And I'm going to try and figure out what times what makes negative 24 that adds up to 2. I know that 2 times 12 is 24, but since it's a negative right here with the 24, it has to be one of them's negative, one of them's positive. So if I subtract them, 12 minus 2 is not 2. So I have to try something else. So maybe I can do 6 times 4. And 6 times 4 is 24. And if they have opposite signs because of this negative, I could have a positive 6 and a negative 4 because that subtracts to get positive 2. So then this would be x times x, and this would be a positive 6 and a negative 4. So that makes this negative 4x and 6x. And everything works out fine because 6x minus 4 is 2x. And I can write this fraction now as x plus 6 times x minus 4. So that's my top. And then let's try the bottom. I can fill in x squared and 6. And what two numbers multiply to get 6 that add to get 7? And what's magical here is they both have to be positive, so they add together. So the only thing I can think of that would add to get a bigger number is 6 times 1, because 6 plus 1 is 7. So then we would have x and 6, and x and 1, and this would be 1x, and this would be 6x. And we can check and make sure that 1x and 6x does make 7. So on the bottom I have x plus 6, and on the side I have x and a positive 1, and x plus 6 and x plus 6 cancel out, so my answer is x minus 4 over x plus 1. That is simplified or reduced. If we put the original function into the calculator and our simplified function, what we notice is it gives us almost the exact same graph. The difference is right over here. We canceled out an x plus 6, and we know we always take the opposite to get the x value, so that would be a negative 6. And if you look over here at negative 6, it used to have a hole in the graph where it couldn't be negative 6 because negative 6 plus 6 is 0, and we can't divide by 0. So we lost that value when we simplified. So the only difference between the two graphs is there isn't that hole right here at negative 6. So go ahead, pause the video, and try the two problems at the bottom. Let's take a look. And I'm going to do some squares. So on the top, I have x squared, and I have a negative 15. And I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to get 15 that add up to a negative 2. So this tells me negative, they're opposite signs, and I know that this is x times x, and I know that one of these is a negative and one is a positive. If I take 5 and 3, I get 15, and if I want 5 is the bigger number, so it has to be negative, and 3 has to be positive because this is a negative 2. So on the top, I'm going to have x minus 5 times x plus 3. And then on the bottom, I'm going to do my square again. And I know that this is x squared because here, and then this is negative 18. And I know that's x times x. And I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to get 18 that add up to the 3 in the middle. What we notice again is it's negative. So one has to be a negative, one has to be a positive. And the bigger number has to be negative because the middle is negative. So what two numbers multiply to get 18? That subtract to get 3. Well, I think that's 6 and 3. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 minus 3 is 3. So we have to have a minus 6 because that is the bigger, and I want it to be a negative, and a 3 here. So on the bottom I have x minus 6 and x plus 3. And magical, the x plus 3's cancel out, and I have x minus 5 over x minus 6 is my answer. If you put them in the calculator again, right over here, when you put it in the calculator, a -3 will be missing in the original graph, but in the simplified graph it will be there. Letter D, I'm going to make my square, and I have x squared and -8. So I know this is x times x, and since this is a negative, 1 is bigger, and it has to be negative to get the negative in the middle. So I have a negative and a positive again. And the two numbers that multiply to get 8, that add to get subtract to get 7, is 8 and 1. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 minus 1 is 7. And we know the 8 has to be the bigger negative, and a 1 here. So on the top I have x minus 8 and x plus 1. And on the bottom, let's make our square. We have x squared, and then we have a positive 8. And we make a -9 in the middle. So what we know here is that the only way to multiply to get to an 8 and add to get to a negative means that they both have to be negative. In order to add them together to get a -9, you can't add two positives and get a negative. So I know both of them are negative. And what two numbers multiply to get 8 and add, because they're both negative, to get 9. And that is 8 and 1. And on the bottom I have x minus 8 and x minus 1. And I can cancel, so x minus 8 is exactly like x minus 8, and these have opposite signs, so my answer is x plus 1 over x minus 1. And again, if you put it in the calculator, you're going to find out that there's a dot, a missing dot at positive 8 in the original, and that dot will be filled in on the simplified because we've lost that piece.